The term astrology has come to mean many things, but this presentation will explain to the viewer very clearly how it works and how it debunks the cosmology of randomness. A common reaction that people have when astrology is brought up is, what do a bunch of flaming gas balls floating trillions of light years away in space have to do with me or my consciousness? Total new age nonsense. Science can easily disprove it. If the Earth actually moved through outer space, so would everything else, and there would be no consistent constellations. All the other planets, stars, and star systems would be moving in their own random directions and be untraceable. I'm not here to give you facts, but I'm here to take you down a journey. If you are truly curious, then let me show you what astrology really is, how you can use it in your everyday life, and how it proves that we live in a special reality. Let's begin. Astrotheology and the religion of randomness. What if I told you that there was a secret history to the world that was passed down for ages, and that has been passed on into the secret societies? I know most of you find it absolutely ridiculous, but a large amount of the people who created our history were believers in the occult. Ancient historians tell us that in Egypt, Greek, and Rome, public temples in locations like Thebes, Eleusis, and Ephesus had mystery schools. Here, meditation and occult techniques were taught to some of the greatest leaders of ancient times. Some would dedicate years to prepare for this journey. Some examples being Plato, Aeschylus, Herodotus, Alexander the Great, Caesar Augustus, Cicero, and many more. These figures were initiated into a secret philosophy, a secret teaching that has been suppressed and hidden from us in modern times. Some of the exercises in these schools include sensory deprivation, breathing exercises, hallucinogenic drugs, and different ways of redirecting sexual orgone energies. The purpose of these exercises were to cause an altered state of consciousness, which would allow these initiates to see the world from a completely different perspective. In the ancient world, the understanding of reality, or the unveiling of the true nature of reality, was one of their most guarded secrets. It all became suppressed with Rome and Christianity. The sacred art became heretical, and if one was caught practicing these sacred arts, they would be punished severely. The truth of the matter is that this sacred knowledge didn't go anywhere. The ruling elite continued to be taught in secret. For the masses, they pushed only the exoteric understandings of these sacred teachings. We hear about the Illuminati in the mainstream media, usually talked about with a humorous overtone to reassure the audience that it's just a silly millionaires club. What's hardly spoken of is the Rosicrucians, Eastern Stars, the Knights Templar, Skull and Bones, and countless others that we surely know nothing about. It's a common conclusion that these secret clubs exist in order to retain certain knowledges and maintain a certain level of consciousness among the masses via media such as television, social media, movies, and games. They do this by injecting elements of the truth into fanciful lies so that the truth is right in front of us but cannot be distinguished without understanding parables or the art of allegory. It's science that decides what's real, what our purpose is, and what is our life going to be like when we die.
It's very hard to accept for many of us that when you die, it's over.
Instead of the fear of being burned at the stake, the modern magician has to fear his reputation being ruined. Most of my commenters who make negative comments on the idea of flat Earth have little to no understanding of the occult. The way they think is the only way I will let go of the globe model is that the flat Earth is scientifically proven. Concepts like receiving knowledge from an entity from beyond the veil, or the thought that there are secret groups of people suppressing the awareness of the human race, these concepts are often perceived to be the epitome of insanity. Yet a surprising amount of famous figures have secretly cultivated the ancient philosophy and mystical states taught in the secret societies. Some examples being Charlemagne, Dante, Joan of Arc, Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and even Napoleon.
A quote by J.P. Morgan: "Millionaires don't need astrologers, billionaires do." This day, many of the most prolific companies use astrology for business. Chase, JP Morgan, Apple, as well as many lucky Wall Street traders. Some even claim that the United States government makes use of astrologers, as well as other psychics of various specializations. It's commonly known that entire civilizations were built upon fundamentals of astrology. There are various pyramids and temples that still match up with constellations in our skies today. The ancients worshipped the planets as gods, and these gods all had a story. These myths assisted them in knowing when to plant seeds, plan wars, and when to harvest. The phrase as above, so below indicates that the movements of these celestial bodies mirror the happenings on Earth. The electromagnetic energy that comes from the light of these stars creates a specific spectral vibration, subtly influencing the inner workings of the world below.
Most of the famous figures that I mentioned had belief systems that would be scoffed at because of the sheer contradiction between what modern science tells us today. Yet, these are some of the most talented and notable humans of history. Are we to assume that because of the intellectual and technological benefits of science that these individuals of the past were just uneducated? Well, you'll find it surprising that even in modern times, many still hold the same beliefs. It's not just crackpots, scammy psychics, or fantastical authors, but the founders of modern scientific method, the rationalists, the scourgers of superstition. Could it be that the very people who have done the most to form today's scientifically oriented and materialistic worldview have secretly believed in something else? Newton, Kepler, Voltaire, Thomas Paine, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Leo Tolstoy, Edison, Tesla, Gandhi, and Wilhelm Reich are a few examples. What most of modern society has yet to understand is that these figures were initiated into a secret tradition with key tenets like the belief of the power of mind over matter, the idea that they were able to extract information from incorporeal spirits. Biographies of modern times will conveniently skip over this fact, and if they do mention it, they dismiss it as a hobby, a temporary aberration, or amusing ideas that these personalities may have played around with, or they were just being metaphorical. But never could it be that they were actually being serious. However, as we shall see, Newton translated the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and was a practicing alchemist for all of his adult life. He regarded alchemy as his most important work, not physics. Voltaire practiced ceremonial magic through all the years he dominated the intellectual life of Europe. George Washington evoked a great spirit in the sky when he founded the city that would bear his name. And when Napoleon said he was guided by his star, he was talking about the Great Spirit who showed him his destiny and made him invulnerable and magnificent. History has been consistent in keeping this knowledge secret from the public. Even in times of Zarathustra, secret wisdom of the mystery schools was denoted by the holding of a rolled scroll. Nothing has changed. This tradition has been passed on into modern times, and today, the remaining statues and monuments of ancient times are embedded with this secret doctrine. If only the world knew that these secret societies were teaching their initiates how to travel to other worlds in their astral body, where they could see proof for themselves that the mind does indeed have an effect over the material world. Esoteric initiates have been writing about this for centuries, such as Paracelsus, Giovanni Battista della Porta, Cornelius Agrippa, or Emanuel Swedenborg. But in all these cases, the writing is aimed for people already in the know. These texts conceal just as much as they reveal. You'll find that there is no concise guide on the internet to these secret teachings. That is why I have taken the initiative onto myself, in the pursuit that the masses may receive this information and perceive the world in a new way. I am thankful for the benefits of science, but what science has become is a cosmology. You see, science is great at the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical world, but what science can't tell us is why we are here, how consciousness came to be. The cosmology of randomness is what dominates our society's perspective of reality, subconsciously or consciously. They get you to believe that the world came from randomness. This base principle implies to your entire belief structure that life is meaningless. I have had hundreds of comments from Christians stating that the flat earth is absolutely ridiculous. What a contradiction, right? If you are religious at all, which by the way, we are not, this is also a common assumption. We are not Christians. We are thinkers. If you are a Christian, your beliefs contradict with the belief that the earth is a ball. For the very fact that Christianity came from these ancient mystery schools. What Romans termed as paganism was the source in which their material came. Astrotheology and religion. The idea that the stars and religion are connected is not a new thought by any means. It's been pointed out by students of comparative mythology hundreds of thousands of times. We cannot look at astrotheology and religion and deny their similarities with a straight face. So let's take a look at this suggestion and see if the idea has any validity or any place in our world today. Perhaps astrotheology is a common ground for the religions of the world, as traces of it can be seen throughout the world in some way. Can you truly deny the outrageous statistics that this was mere coincidence?
The first stargazers on their tall towers were in the land of Babel. These stargazers were astronomer priests, and at this point there was no differentiation between science and religion. We may say that almost certainly sciences were originally cultivated because of their religious content, or for the reason that they helped to support the religious convictions of the people. We know that the temples were the first colleges, and the ancient towers and palaces of the gods were the first astronomical observatories. Manly P. Hall. There is a well-known legend that states that the constellations were named by the shepherds of the world. Watching their flocks at night with nothing to do, they allowed their imaginations to project images of various creatures by connecting the stars into patterns. It's likely that these shepherds were the shepherd priests or the shepherd kings of the days of old. Ancient priests knew that astronomy was the science of the anatomy of the universe, and to a measure, these same ancients believed that the universe was the body of a blessed God, and thus they considered astronomy the anatomy or physiology of the body of the deity. This deity, represented as his God, is extended and distributed throughout the infinite diversity of its own parts and members. In any event, at a very remote time, men learned a considerable amount about astronomy. It is quite likely that there have been cycles of remembrance and forgetfulness in this subject. Manly P. Hall. Let's take a look at some popular examples in religion. Here we have Horus of Egypt. Birthday on December 25th. He was born of the Virgin Isis. He was called a star in the east, adorned by 3 kings, became a teacher at 12, was baptized at age 30 by Anup, had 12 disciples that he traveled around with. He performed miracles, was referred to as the Truth, the Lamb of God, the Light, was betrayed by Typhon, and was crucified and was dead for 3 days before returning to life. Jesus of Nazareth, also born on December 25th, born of the Virgin Mary, was called the Star in the East, adorned by 3 kings, was a teacher at age 12, baptized at age 30 by John the Baptist, had 12 disciples that he traveled around with performing miracles, and was also known as the Truth, the Lamb of God, and the Light. He was betrayed by Judas, crucified, and was dead for 3 days before returning to life. Krishna of India, born of a virgin, Devaki, was called the Star in the East, performed miracles with his disciples, and after dying, he returned to life. Mithra, born on the 25th of December, the Virgin Nanan, had 12 disciples that he traveled around with, and after being dead for 3 days, returned to life. His day of worship is Sunday. Dionysus of Greece, born on December 25th of a virgin, performed miracles like turning water into wine, was often referred to as the King of Kings, the Alpha and the Omega, and was resurrected after death. Even further, we have Osiris, Odin, Baal, Prometheus, and many, many more figures that fit this general mold, but I think the point has been made. The question is why? Why are there so many obvious similarities? If civilizations were as isolated as we were taught by traditional academia, then there would have been no way that this many cultures could have shared these stories. Star in the East refers to Sirius, the brightest star of the night sky, and on the 24th of December, it aligns with the 3 stars in Orion's belt. These 3 stars have always been referred to as the 3 kings, and their movements mirror the story of the 3 wise kings who follow the Son of God, spoken of in multiple religions.
Astrology and divination. In the modern day, we have psychics, online healers, spiritual gurus, and it can be very easy to be manipulated when coming to this topic from a beginning point of view. When people hear the term astrology, most people are thinking natal astrology. This is a system of astrology that takes the position of the sun on the zodiac at the exact date, time, and location of where you were born. Then, depending on the sun's relationship to the other bodies, certain traits of the individual's personality or life path can be determined. Think of it like a snapshot in time. The signs of the zodiac, the planets, are occult forces, or hidden forces. These forces are spiritual principles that are the fundamental archetypal attributes of our reality, or God. Observing the energy present when someone is born is important, because it allows the observer to understand the potential strengths and weaknesses of the individual idea, business venture, or person. If one understands the energies present in a subject, they can learn which energies benefit the subject, thus determine which days are most likely to produce beneficial results. This strategy also allows for the observer to know which days are less likely to be successful and should be avoided. This is not based on luck, but rather the compatibility of energies both of the subject and the day in question. I would make the argument that a large percentage of the people who consider themselves to be spiritual or interested in the occult are actually contradicting themselves when they say they believe we're on a spinning globe, or that we were created from a random Big Bang. I hope by the end of this video you will see past all the nonsense of the modern day astrology. Magic has been suppressed, butchered, and distorted. We are left with new age material that gives you basic concepts but distorts them to a point where it becomes meaningless. In order to understand astrology, we need to understand astrotheology. You might have never heard that term. I assert this is intentional, for if we were to understand astrotheology, we would know the roots of all religions and the tools that every major corporation in the world uses to this day. These celestial bodies in the sky and their symbols have come to represent universal archetypes or truths. Is tarot just a card game of fancies? Perhaps there is more to this art. One may find that the cards with their symbolic universal encoded messages get randomized and placed in a system of divination that leads the practitioner to a greater understanding of the question at hand. Other forms of divination include Chinese I Ching, tea leaf reading, crystal gazing, runic divination, and astrological prediction. The goal of divination is to prevent the self from performing black magic. Some like to divide the line between black, gray, and white, and the definitions following vary. My perspective is that white magic is for the purpose of the development of the higher self. Black magic is any magic that is against the advice of the higher self or intuition. This is the true meaning of good and evil, to disobey your God-given purpose, who speaks to you through your creative inspiration and mental discipline. If we start saying gray magic, that the line becomes very thin. Who gets to decide what magic is used for? We do magic on a daily basis. The goal is just to organize the different qualities of magic. We have magic that is suited for the development of the higher self, and then magic that can easily get lost in egotistical desires. The tarot and the rich symbolism behind it originated with the ancient Druids. It was then passed on to the Phoenicians, who taught the Egyptians and then the Greek cultures. Initiates being led into the mysteries would go underground via hidden passages to the Great Pyramid itself, wherein he would receive these symbols to be enlightened.
Here's some factual history. The first mention of the tarot was made in 1332 by Alphonse VI, King of Leon and Castile. He banned them along with other gambling games. In 1337, Johannes, a German monk, wrote that they could be used to teach morality. In 1392, Charles VI of France bought 3 sets of major arcana from a man named Gringonure. By the 1400s, the Italian version, known as the Tarocchino, had over 100 cards, including the zodiac and so-called Christian virtues.
Most people think of fortune telling when they think of psychics. Fortune telling is telling someone something must happen. Divination does not say that something must happen, but instead, it can just indicate the quality of what will happen if you continue the path you're on. For example, think of tarot reading as a snapshot in time, a random positioning of ancient symbolic pictorial images that lead you towards these attributes associated with your current question. It's not a determined answer.
For this example, we are going to use the Thoth Tarot deck, simply for the elegance and depth of symbolism. So, let's ask a question. What will the outcome be if I use magic to get a new car?
While concentrating on your question, mix up the cards in any manner you desire. Continue to shuffle until you get the sensation from your higher self to stop. Cut the cards into 3 piles. Pick up the cards from right to left, reversing the order of the way you cut the cards. The cards are laid in a specific systematic order designed with symbolic meaning. The first 3 cards make the upper, downwards facing triangle. Cards 4, 5, and 6 make up the lower, upward pointing triangle. The 7 card goes in the middle between the 2 triangles. When you flip them in the same position so that they don't change their upright or reversed orientation. Turn over 1 and 2. Both positions represent unknown spiritual influences. Card 2 has a stronger effect than card 1. Interpret. Turn over card 3. This represents spiritual advice for the matter. Interpret. Turn over card 4. This card represents your unconscious desires in the matter. Don't be surprised if you discover that your real inner reason has little or no relation to your original or outer reason. Interpret this card. Turn over card 5. This card represents your conscious desires in the matter. Interpret this card. Turn over card 6. This card indicates practical advice in the matter. It may suggest changing your focus in order to achieve what you really want. It may advise you to go ahead or abandon the project. Of course, whether you continue with the project or not is up to you. Turn over card 7. This is the final outcome. If you go ahead and follow your current path at this time, even if the reading so far has been positive, the outcome may be negative. This is because there may be other considerations which this short reading does not take into account. The split hexagram spread is a simple method that can help you communicate with your higher self. Here is the summary of this reading. This reading is for Moon, and she asked the question, what will be the outcome if I use magic to obtain a new vehicle? This would be a big change in your life. Cards 1 and 2 represent unknown spiritual influences. Card 1 is the Sun, representing freedom and emancipation. She maybe wants to feel the feeling of empowerment on her own, the freedom to act as she chooses. On the other hand, card 2 is the Aeon, which indicated a personal decision that has a significant impact on your life. This is a change in maturity and mentality because of the impact of this event. Card 3 is spiritual advice for the matter. The card flipped was the Emperor. The primary interpretations of the Emperor are concerned with power and control, either over people or over yourself. This seems to be saying that Moon is seeking structure in her personal life. Card 4 represents unconscious desires in the matter. The card chosen was the Chariot, which represents that first, Moon must have the proper preparation in order for victory to be achieved. The lunar crescent affirms that this indeed is her unconscious desires. Once victory is achieved, her personality will be moved into a new location. Card 5 represents conscious desires. The Empress is next chosen. This indicates that Moon is looking for emotional well-being and fulfillment. This represents her maternal instincts and for her drive to become the woman that she's meant to become. Card 6 represents practical advice. This came up as the Moon. This is telling Moon that the practical advice is that her desire for a car immediately indicates illusion and delusion. Unconscious desires and repressed feelings are at play with the situation at hand. This is telling Moon that overall you don't need a new car right now. You have everything you need, and that when you are ready, the opportunity will come. Now for the final card, which represents the final outcome, the Lovers. The Lovers signify the creative force. It is telling Moon to carefully look at all aspects of the situation before making any conclusions. It indicates to be careful planning with important decisions. The answer that Moon received is no. You should not do magic on getting a car. There's no reason for you to do so. You are not ready, and it would be an illusion. Stay on track with your creative forces, and once you're prepared and ready, a car will be revealed. This is just a small example. It gets much more advanced. Sometimes simplicity can tell you much more. Perception of the occult. People scoff at tarot, but there exist many stories of people being baffled by the talent of skilled mystics. The ability to detail events and personalities to an astonishing accuracy when there was no practical way that they obtained the knowledge is beyond the scope of science, yet we hear stories of oracles and prophecies since ancient times. I hope that you would leave this video with a new perspective of divination. This is just the beginning. We plan on making more advanced videos on astrology and its practical uses, but the main intention for this video was to give the subject justice by explaining it from a non-globe perspective. I argue that since ancient times up to the founding fathers, a secret doctrine of divination has been suppressed and hidden, while at the same time being practiced by the political and intellectual elite. To conclude, I want you to see modern horoscopes and astrology as a New Age movement. This term may be offensive, but no other is more specific. We have hundreds of thousands of individuals that belong to this movement of astrology, spiritual thinking, law of attraction, yet they believe in a globe Earth. You are contradicting yourself. This video is for you. You need to wake up to the fact that the globe model is based on the Big Bang model, which is another way of saying the cosmology of randomness. If everything is random, then there is no pattern in the stars. The stars can't have meaning. Explain how constellations would have influence over the Earth. Aliens? How about this? Stop the Earth argument. It's not about globe Earth or flat Earth. It's the material plane. Yes, that's it. It's that simple. The ancients referred to this as the material plane, and the material plane is a product of the spiritual planes, otherwise referred to as the astral. Doesn't that make a little bit more sense on why the law of attraction works? Why astrology provides insights on the personalities in the world events? Because the planets created the spirit realms that in turn created the physical world. That will have to be for a whole different video. If you made it this far, then thank you. I don't claim to have the answers. All I can tell you is that there is a great deception. We have lost touch with our purpose and the connection with our intuition and our higher selves. With this knowledge, we can achieve our goals and our destiny, but first, we must take care of our shadows. Don't practice this information unless you're willing to look into the deepest parts of yourself. Otherwise, you're still a fool. There's no shame in having much to learn, and we all must admit this to ourselves before we can begin to understand further. Much love to all, and I want to leave you with a quote from Aleister Crowley. Most will comment, "Oh, he was a Satanist, he practiced black magic, blah blah blah." You, my friend, believe what you're told. Read before you write. Quote, "There is, however, one form of miracle which certainly happens, the influence of the genius. There is no known analogy in nature. One cannot even think of a super dog transforming the world of dogs, whereas in history of mankind this happens with regularity and frequency. Now here are 3 supermen all at loggerheads. What is there in common between Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad? Is there any one point upon which all 3 are in accord? No point of doctrine, no point of ethics, no theory of a hereafter do they share, yet in history of their lives we find one identity amid many diversities. Buddha was born a prince and he died a beggar. Muhammad was born a beggar and died a prince. Christ remained obscure until many years after his death. Elaborate lives of each have been written by devotees, and there is one thing in common to all 3, an omission. We hear nothing of Christ between the ages of 12 and 30. Muhammad disappeared into a cave. Buddha left his palace and went for a long while into the desert. Each of them perfectly silent up to the time of the disappearance, came back and immediately began to preach a new law. What happened to them in their absence? History will not solve the problem, for history is silent. We have only the accounts given by the men themselves. Of our best document will therefore be the system of Buddha, but it is so complex that no immediate summary will serve, and in the case of the others, if we have not the accounts of the masters, we have those of their immediate followers. The methods advised by all the people having a startling resemblance to one another. They recommend virtue of various kinds, solitude, absence of excitement, moderation in diet, and finally a practice which some call prayer and some call meditation. For what is the state of either prayer or meditation? It is the restraining of the mind to a single act, state, or thought. If we sit down quietly and investigate the contents of our minds, determined to control this wandering thought, we shall find that we are fairly well able to keep thoughts running in a narrow channel, each thought linked to the last in a perfectly rational manner. But if we attempt to stop this current, we shall find that so far from succeeding, we shall merely break down the banks of the channel. The mind will overflow, and instead of a chain of thought, we shall have a chaos of confused images. It is by freeing the mind from external influences, whether casual or emotional, that it obtains power to see somewhat of the truth of things." End quote. I hope this was stimulating, and until next time, may our minds be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true. Relax the mind and ask the question, do I truly understand what this reality is?